The clock on the meeting room wall read 2:32 p.m. as Laura took a deep breath, walking down the hallway toward the room where she would give her presentation. The sound of her footsteps echoed loudly inside her head, mingling with the rapid beat of her heart. This was more than just a presentation. It was the chance she had been waiting for to prove her worth within the team. In recent weeks, the weight of personal struggles had become almost unbearable. Her mother's illness, the endless bills piling up, and the growing feeling of being alone in it all pressed down like heavy stones on her shoulders. Yet Laura had poured herself into her work like never before, preparing every slide, every data point, every argument, determined not to let her personal life affect her performance. She entered the meeting room wearing a restrained smile, trying to hide her anxiety. Her colleagues were all there, seated around the table, some with friendly looks, others neutral, and a few curious. At the head of the table sat Mr. Mitchell, their boss, his usual stern and serious expression revealing little emotion. "Laura, you may begin," he said, his firm voice cutting through the silence. She opened her laptop, connected it to the projector, and started her presentation, showing graphs, plans, and solutions that, in her view, could transform the company's internal processes. But halfway through, a sharp voice interrupted her flow. "Interesting, Laura, but we can't ignore that your personal situation has been affecting your performance. I'm not sure everyone here knows, but..." Mr. Mitchell paused deliberately. "Dealing with family problems should not be an excuse for low productivity." A heavy silence fell over the room. Her colleagues exchanged uncomfortable glances, and Laura felt her face burn, a painful mix of shame and anger swelling inside her. She tried to keep her composure, breathing deeply to hold back tears, but the public humiliation was overwhelming. Before she could respond, a quieter but still audible voice came from a nearby colleague. "She's been a bit distracted lately. With so much going on at home, it's hard to stay focused." The comment cut even deeper, like an invisible knife piercing her chest. With trembling hands, Laura closed her laptop, slowly stood up and left the room, feeling every gaze weighing heavily on her back. In the empty hallway, she leaned against the cold wall, closed her eyes, and let the pain and humiliation flood her chest for a moment. She felt the chill of the wall against her back, as if it were the only support left. The corridor was silent, except for distant voices and footsteps echoing from the other side of the building. Laura struggled to breathe, trying to sort through the jumble of emotions inside her: sadness, anger, fear, and a sting of shame burning like fire. The memory of Mr. Mitchell's and her colleagues' words echoed loudly in her mind, using her personal life against her like that. It was something she never imagined facing. The truth was harsh. Laura's mother had been ill for months. The back-and-forth hospital visits, expensive medications, and mounting bills pressed heavily on her routine and mind, turning each day into a battle. But she had kept it all hidden at work, knowing she might be seen as weak or incapable. That afternoon, however, the weakness she had tried so hard to conceal was laid bare for all to see, and worse, used against her as a weapon. Laura turned slowly, walked to the window in the hallway, and rested her hands on the cold glass. Outside, the grey sky seemed to mirror the storm inside her. She didn't want to cry there, in the middle of the building, but a single tear escaped and traced its way down her cheek. Far off, her phone vibrated in her pocket. It was a message from her best friend, Emily. She couldn't resist replying with a simple, "I need you." Soon after, Emily appeared beside her, with that comforting presence only a true friend can offer. No questions, just a firm, silent hug. "You're not alone, Laura," Emily said softly, almost a whisper. "This will pass. You're stronger than you think." Emily's words were a balm, but Laura knew the road to turning things around would still be long and painful. In the hours that followed, Laura returned to her desk, her heart still heavy, but with a spark of determination growing inside. She sat down, opened her notebook, and began jotting down ideas, plans, and goals. It was as if she needed to chart a new course, a map out of that dark moment. In the quiet, nearly empty office, she breathed deeply, focusing on every word she wrote. She knew the humiliation she had suffered couldn't be the end of her story. She had to turn that pain into strength. In the days that followed, Laura woke up early, reviewed her materials, sought out online courses, and worked tirelessly to sharpen every detail of her job. At home, despite family hardships, she tried to carve out moments for self-care, even if just stolen minutes amid the chaos. There were nights when exhaustion nearly defeated her, but she remembered that empty corridor and Emily's silent embrace. That lowest point was where change began. Each small progress, each quiet recognition, fueled her resolve. She no longer wanted to be defined by the humiliation of the past, but by the power of her comeback. Laura sat at her desk, the weight of her colleagues' gazes still burning on her skin like an invisible mark. The computer screen seemed farther away, colder, reflecting not only the data she had to analyze, but also the insecurity beginning to take root in her chest. As she tried to refocus, the voices from the meeting echoed inside her mind. The words of Mr. Mitchell, the whisper of her co-worker, as if trapped in an endless loop. She felt the urge to run away, to leave everything behind and disappear into that maze of corridors and rooms that had, until then, been her workplace. But something held her back, a quiet determination already growing in the midst of the storm. Her phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from the hospital, informing her about her mother's next appointment. Anxiety tightened her chest, mingling with guilt, the feeling that she wasn't doing enough at home or at work. In the following days, Laura divided her time between meeting work demands and caring for her sick mother. There were nights when, exhausted, she leaned on the kitchen sink, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. The routine seemed like an impossible race, a tightrope walk where each wrong step could make her fall. But amid the chaos, Laura found moments of silence and reflection that became her refuge. She wrote in her journal, noting not only tasks, but also her thoughts, fears, and dreams. It was her way of organizing the turmoil inside. At work, despite the difficulties, she began to notice small changes. Some colleagues who once avoided her started to offer supportive looks, however subtle. There were still those who judged her, but Laura decided not to let others' opinions define her worth. One afternoon, while reviewing reports, a co-worker named Jessica quietly approached and said, "If you need help, you can count on me, okay?" It was a simple gesture, but it lit a spark inside her. She was not alone. During that period, Laura learned the importance of asking for help and recognizing her own limits without feeling less capable. It was a slow process, full of stumbles, but essential for her transformation. Morning started early for Laura, even before the sun fully rose. Her alarm would go off at 5:30 a.m., and she'd already be up preparing her mother's medications, making a simple breakfast, and making sure everything was in order before heading to work. The quiet house, lit only by the faint kitchen light, was her small sanctuary, a place where, despite the chaos, she gathered strength to face the day. On the way to the office, Laura tried to keep her focus on the goals she'd set for herself. The city streets were still fairly empty, and the fresh morning air brought a momentary relief to her restless mind. But as she neared the company building, anxiety tightened her chest. The fear of facing judgmental glances, whispers, and the bitter memory of humiliation at the meeting still lingered. Throughout the workday, every task felt like a double challenge. Besides the usual pressure, Laura had to silence the inner voice questioning her value and ability. With every mistake, no matter how small, the fear of reliving that humiliation grew stronger. One tense morning, Laura faced a complicated problem in the company's internal system. Solving it required not only technical knowledge, but also creativity and calm, qualities she felt slipping away under the weight of stress. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and began working, consulting manuals, searching for information, and discreetly asking trusted colleagues for advice. Despite her insecurity, that situation sparked a glimmer of hope. Maybe it was possible to turn things around. But it wasn't only work demanding her attention. At day's end, she rushed home where her personal reality awaited with its relentless weight. Physical and emotional exhaustion mixed together, and she often wondered how she would keep going. One particularly hard night, after caring for her mother and organizing medications, Laura sat on the porch, staring at the starry sky. The silence of the night seemed to embrace her, and tears finally came, not out of defeat, but relief at allowing herself to feel. That night, she promised herself she wouldn't let that humiliation define her story. She knew the road would be tough, but she was determined to fight, for herself, for her mother, and for the future she could still build. In the weeks that followed, Laura began to establish a strict routine, almost like a ritual to stay strong. Every morning upon waking, she would write a positive thought in her journal, a seed of hope to nurture amid the storm she was living through. It was a small act, but it was already beginning to change something inside her. At the office, the atmosphere was a mix of tension and forced normalcy. Some colleagues still avoided contact, while others tried to show discreet solidarity. Laura realized she was no longer alone. Small, silent gestures of support started to appear. One day during lunch, Jessica invited her to join the group. Laura hesitated but accepted. The conversation was light, with timid laughter. It was a simple moment, but it brought some relief to the loneliness she felt. However, the challenge was not only external in the workplace. Inside, Laura was fighting invisible battles. There were days when physical exhaustion was overwhelming. Other times, anxiety threatened to take over. She sought comfort in small things. A walk in the park during lunch, listening to calming music, practicing breathing exercises before important meetings. At home, her mother's condition demanded more and more care. Laura had to learn how to balance the role of caregiver with that of a dedicated professional. Sometimes the weight felt unbearable, but she found strength in small victories. Her mother's smile, good medical news, a compliment at work. It was in this delicate balance that the seed of overcoming began to grow, even if hidden beneath the weight of an exhausting routine. On that grey morning, Laura woke before the alarm. The faint light coming through the window barely lit the room, but it was enough for her to feel the weight of a new day. Despite the tiredness accumulated over the past weeks, a different feeling propelled her, a mix of hope and determination growing inside. After caring for her mother, making coffee, and tidying the house in a routine that was starting to take shape, Laura dressed calmly, choosing clothes that made her feel confident, even though inside she still felt insecure. Every detail in that morning ritual was a conscious effort to regain control of her life. On the way to the office, she passed by a small park that, for some reason, always brought her peace. She stopped for a few minutes to watch the trees sway and listen to the birds' song, a simple moment that became a breath for the soul. Arriving at the building, Laura noticed people's eyes still carried that mix of curiosity and judgment, but this time she decided not to let it affect her. She took a deep breath and walked with her head held high, focused on the task ahead. During the morning meeting, she avoided confrontation. She listened attentively, took notes, and answered clearly when questioned. Still, deep down, she knew she had to prove her worth more than ever. At lunch, Jessica invited her again to join the group. This time, Laura accepted without hesitation. The conversations were light, sometimes funny, and for brief moments the tension she carried seemed to ease. She felt welcomed, part of something bigger. Back at her desk, Laura worked diligently on reports. That work, despite the difficulties, was becoming a refuge, a space where she could show what she was really capable of. At home, in the evenings, caring for her mother required extra attention. Laura would sit beside her, hold her hand gently, and try to convey strength with a smile, even when her heart ached. The hard moments were many, but there were also small flashes of hope, unexpected improvements, peaceful conversations, gestures of affection. Sometimes, before going to sleep, Laura wrote in her journal. Her words revealed a soul in transformation, a woman who, despite the storms, refused to give up. It was in that intimate space that she let her feelings flow without fear, preparing herself for the battle yet to come. The weeks passed, and Laura's life continued with its ups and downs, like an emotional roller coaster testing her resilience at every turn. Every morning brought a new challenge: the anxiety of facing the office, the constant worry about her mother's health, the physical and mental exhaustion piling up. Yet Laura began to notice internal changes. Small gestures, attitudes, and thoughts showed she was no longer the same person from that humiliating meeting. That painful moment, which once seemed like the end of the world, was becoming a starting point for a journey of overcoming. At work, despite Mr. Mitchell's constant presence and relentless demands, Laura found support in friendly faces. Jessica stayed by her side, offering discreet help, understanding looks, and encouraging gestures that made all the difference. Other colleagues who once avoided her began showing signs of respect, even if silent. One rainy afternoon, while reviewing a complex report, Laura received an unexpected call. It was from the hospital. The news wasn't good. Her mother needed a delicate procedure, and the coming days would be decisive. Fear tightened her chest, but she took a deep breath, remembering the strength she had been building. That night, sitting in her kitchen chair, Laura reflected on everything she had been through: the humiliation, the daily fight, the loneliness, but also the hope, the courage, the determination. She knew she couldn't control all circumstances, but she could control how she responded. She decided that from that moment on, her mission was to fight with all her strength, to turn things around, not just to be recognized at work, but to be true to herself, to prove that her story wouldn't be written by mistakes or others' words, but by her ability to overcome. Looking out the window, the fine rain traced paths on the glass, as if the whole world was renewing itself along with her. In the days following the hospital news, Laura's routine became even more intense. The constant worry over her mother's health turned hours into a mix of anxiety and hope. Every appointment, every test, every word from the doctors was a new battle she had to face, one that, though silent, drained a huge part of her energy. At work, the environment remained challenging. Mr. Mitchell stayed strict, and the memory of that humiliating meeting haunted her thoughts. Yet, Laura began to notice that despite the difficulties, her efforts were gaining recognition. Small details, like a discreet compliment, a task well done, a project delivered on time, started to build a new image of her. But the biggest challenge was still within herself. Doubt, fear, and guilt lingered like persistent shadows, trying to extinguish the light she tried to keep burning. In quiet moments, she allowed herself to feel it all, the pain, sadness, and exhaustion, as a way to process and move forward. One especially hard night, when exhaustion felt almost unbearable, Laura sat on the living room couch, staring at the ceiling and letting tears fall freely. It wasn't weakness, it was humanity, the true expression of someone who fights, suffers, and refuses to give up. That night, as she closed her eyes, a certainty began to take root in her heart. She would not be defined by humiliation or hardship. She was more than that. She was capable of turning things around, of rebuilding her story with courage and determination. And so, despite everything, the flame of overcoming began to grow, lighting the path Laura was ready to walk. The next morning, Laura woke before the sun. The house was still silent, and a soft light filtered through her bedroom window. She rose slowly, feeling her tired body, but a mind firmer than it had been in weeks. She went to the kitchen table, where her journal lay open. Pen in hand, she began to write, not just lists of tasks or worries, but words that came straight from her heart, words of courage, hope, a promise to herself. Today, I choose not to be defined by yesterday. Today, I commit to fight for my worth, for my dignity. I know the path will be hard, but I am ready to take the first step. After writing, Laura closed the notebook with a light sigh, feeling something shift inside her. It was as if that decision had ignited a flame long dormant. She looked at herself in the mirror, finding a gaze that, despite the marks of struggle, shone with determination. For a moment, fear gave way to courage. That day, arriving at the office, Laura was no longer the same woman who had left humiliated weeks before. She carried within her a new purpose, a silent commitment to prove to herself and the world that despite the falls, she could rise. As the sun began to light up the city streets, Laura took the first step on a journey that would change her life forever. In the days following that decisive morning, Laura fell into an almost ritualistic routine where every little gesture carried a deeper meaning. The early wake-ups, the moments spent studying and preparing, caring for her mother, and the hours at the office all became parts of a process far greater than the everyday tasks. She began setting aside time to learn new skills related to her job. At night, between organizing her mother's medications and preparing dinner, she would read articles, watch videos, and take notes, absorbing every bit of knowledge with a fierce determination. At the office, Laura's demeanor started to shift. Her eyes, once clouded with insecurity, now held a newfound steadiness. She listened more carefully, asked thoughtful questions, and offered suggestions that slowly began to catch the attention of her colleagues, and even Mr. Mitchell himself. There were days when exhaustion felt unbearable, and the urge to give up almost overwhelmed her. But she found strength in small moments, an unexpected compliment, a sincere thank you, the feeling that she had made a real difference. At the same time, her relationship with her mother remained a constant challenge. Laura had to juggle her role as a caregiver with her professional responsibilities, learning to manage both her time and emotions amidst the chaos. With every step forward, she realized she wasn't just reclaiming her place at work. She was rebuilding her self-esteem and her identity. The weeks that followed were marked by an intense and exhausting pace, yet Laura felt that every effort was worthwhile. Even in the moments when fatigue threatened to take over, she held on to the discipline she had created for herself. At work, people began to see her differently. The suggestions she made during meetings were listened to more attentively, and some colleagues started approaching her to discuss projects or ask for help. This shift didn't go unnoticed by Mr. Mitchell, who, despite remaining demanding, began to show a quieter respect. At home, the struggles didn't ease, but Laura learned to cope better with them. Her mother still required constant care, and trips to the hospital remained frequent. Still, Laura didn't allow herself to lose focus on her goals. One particularly tough night, after a long day at work and a difficult medical appointment, Laura sat on her porch and allowed herself a moment of reflection. The silence of the night was broken only by the distant sounds of the city, and the stars above seemed to bear witness to her fight. She took out her journal and wrote, "Every day is a battle, but also a victory. "I am not perfect, I am not invincible, but I am capable, and that's what matters." With these words, Laura reinforced the strength she had found in the midst of the storm. The day began early, as always. Laura woke up before the sun rose, finding in that morning's silence a brief moment of peace before the whirlwind of daily life. The responsibilities weighed heavily, but the determination growing inside her was stronger. At the office, tension still lingered, especially in interactions with Mr. Mitchell. Although he began to show a veiled respect, his demands remained harsh. But Laura learned to face them as challenges, not personal attacks. During a crucial meeting, Laura presented a detailed analysis that offered a solution to a problem that had delayed an important project for months. Her clear reasoning and calm demeanor surprised the team. Even Mr. Mitchell showed a faint, approving smile. That moment was a turning point, not just for her career, but for her confidence. She knew there was still a long road ahead, but that achievement was concrete proof that change was possible. However, balancing work and personal life remained delicate. At home, her mother faced difficult days, and Laura cared for her with love and patience, even when exhaustion seemed unbearable. One of those nights, after tending to her mother, Laura sat at the kitchen table and paused to breathe. She closed her eyes briefly, recalling the humiliation she had suffered weeks before. Instead of letting it crush her, she felt a wave of strength and pride. She had overcome that moment and kept moving forward. In the silence of the early morning, Laura wrote in her journal, "I am stronger than I imagined. Every day is a new opportunity to grow." Days passed, and Laura realized that despite the obstacles, she was starting to carve out her place. Her dedication at work no longer went unnoticed, and even some colleagues who had once avoided her now sought her opinion and company. One morning, arriving at the office, she was greeted by Jessica's sincere smile, who brought her a hot cup of coffee as a gesture of support. Small details that made all the difference to Laura at that moment. But the pressure continued. Mr. Mitchell maintained his strict demeanor, demanding results and insisting on precision. On one occasion, Laura felt the tension rise when he criticized a report that, despite her effort, had some flaws. Although the criticism was harsh, she used it as fuel to improve even more. At the end of the day, exhausted, Laura allowed herself a moment to vent to Emily, her best friend. During a quick phone call, she shared her worries and received comforting words and encouragement that rekindled her hope. With every challenge overcome, Laura felt she was no longer just resisting. She was growing, transforming into a stronger and more confident version of herself. At home, her mother's care remained demanding, but Laura learned to share responsibilities with other family members, which brought some relief to her routine. She also started reserving moments for herself, small spaces of self-care that renewed her strength. One afternoon, while walking in a nearby park, Laura felt the sun warm her face and heard the birds singing. A reminder that even on the hardest days, there was beauty and hope. In the weeks that followed, Laura began to realize that the transformation she sought wasn't only the result of external effort, but came from an internal change. Every small victory at work, every moment of self-care was strengthening an invisible but solid foundation that would support her new path. On a Friday morning, Laura arrived at the office with a different light in her eyes. She knew an important project was about to be presented to the entire board, and this was another opportunity to showcase her abilities. During the preparation, she gathered her team, listened to suggestions, made adjustments, and meticulously reviewed every detail. The insecurity still lingered, but now came paired with hard-earned confidence. On the day of the presentation, as she waited for her turn to speak, Laura felt her heart race. She looked around the room at the faces that had humiliated her months ago and took a deep breath. "I'm ready," she thought. Her voice came out steady, clear, and full of conviction. Every slide, every argument reflected not only her technical knowledge but the strength she had nurtured in the silence of daily battles. At the end, a respectful silence filled the room, followed by sincere but restrained applause. Mr. Mitchell stood and for the first time offered a genuine smile. "Excellent work, Laura. You've shown you can overcome any obstacle," he said, with a tone full of recognition and respect. In that moment, Laura felt a wave of emotion, not just from the public acknowledgement, but from the certainty that her journey of overcoming was just beginning. Every day was a silent battle. Laura woke up early, before the sun lit up the city, and often the weight of accumulated exhaustion felt almost unbearable. Still, she got up with renewed determination, knowing that every effort brought her closer to her goal. At the office, interactions were a mix of caution and progress. Jessica remained a safe harbor, offering support during tough moments, but there were also colleagues who, out of pride or fear, kept their distance, as if Laura's humiliation had left an invisible mark. During a team meeting, Laura was invited to present a proposal she had developed in recent weeks. She felt nervousness tighten her chest, but breathed deeply and began her presentation. Her voice, though shaky at first, grew firmer with every minute, and the skeptical look slowly turned into attention and interest. However, not everyone was willing to accept her rise without resistance. A colleague, David, who had been particularly cold since the incident, made a cutting comment about the proposal's feasibility, questioning technical details. Laura didn't let herself be discouraged. With patience and solid arguments, she answered point by point, demonstrating preparation and knowledge. That episode, though draining, strengthened her conviction that she was on the right path. She learned that overcoming wasn't about pleasing others, but believing in herself, even in the face of adversity. At home, the nights were her most vulnerable moments. After caring for her mother and tidying the house, Laura found refuge in writing. Her diary, increasingly filled, became a mirror where she reflected her emotions, fears, and victories. There, she allowed herself to be honest, recognizing her limits and celebrating her strengths. Moreover, Laura sought small moments for self-care. A brief walk at the end of the day, a calming song, a quick chat with Emily that renewed her hopes. Each day, she built a new version of herself, a resilient woman who refused to be defined by hard moments, but used them as fuel to grow. The days went by, and although exhaustion was constant, Laura found strength in small victories no one else saw. Like that morning when, reviewing a complex report, she noticed a subtle mistake that could have cost the project dearly, and fixed it just in time, averting a bigger problem. She didn't seek applause, but she knew that care made all the difference. At the office, the atmosphere gradually began to change. The looks that once carried judgment gave way to quiet admiration. Colleagues who had avoided her now greeted her more naturally, and even Mr. Mitchell started to trust her opinions more. Still, bad days persisted. In one particularly tense meeting, a sharp remark from a colleague hit her like an unexpected blow, reigniting old insecurities. Laura felt the sting of criticism, but this time didn't let it bring her down. She took a deep breath, responded calmly, and moved forward, aware that her strength didn't depend on others' approval. At home, the care routine continued, demanding much from her. Her mother faced health ups and downs, and Laura adapted to each new situation, learning to handle the unexpected. The responsibility felt heavy, but it was also a reason not to give up. In the hardest moments, she found comfort in Emily's words, who always reminded her of her worth and strength. Their late-night conversations were filled with confidences, laughter, and plans for the future. Plans Laura was beginning to believe were possible. One night, after an especially tiring day, Laura sat on the living room couch, staring at the ceiling, letting tears flow. It wasn't a sign of weakness. but a recognition of the daily fight she waged. That same night, writing in her diary, she wrote, "I am human. I have fears and weaknesses, but I also have courage and determination. I will not give up." With each passing day, Laura started building small routines that helped her maintain balance, even if fragile. Before leaving for work, she reserved a few minutes to meditate, taking deep breaths and seeking to calm her restless mind. It was her moment, a pause to prepare for the challenges ahead. At the office, pressure remained intense, but Laura found ways to navigate it. Instead of feeling crushed by criticism, she began seeing it as an opportunity to learn, focusing on what she could improve without being affected by tone or intent. Her dedication started to draw attention. One day, after completing a particularly detailed report, she received an unexpected compliment from Mr. Mitchell. It was brief, but enough to reignite a flame inside her, the feeling that she was on the right path. During the week, she also allowed herself moments of lightness with Jessica and other colleagues who started to approach her. Those brief moments of relief were like breaths of fresh air in her heavy routine, strengthening the bonds that kept her connected and supported. At home, caring for her mother remained intense. Laura sought to share responsibilities with other family members whenever possible, so she wouldn't carry the full weight alone. Learning to ask for help was a difficult but essential process for her mental and physical health. In the quiet nights, after all tasks were done, she poured herself into her diary, a space where she could be truthful and vulnerable. The words she wrote were like therapy, a way to organize her thoughts, give meaning to the struggle, and renew her strength for the next day. With every filled page, Laura felt herself growing stronger and more resilient, ready to face any storm that might come. Time passed, and Laura felt she was slowly rebuilding her confidence. The looks of doubt and judgment that colleagues once cast at her now showed faint signs of respect, even if unspoken. One ordinary afternoon, she was surprised by an unexpected invitation. Mr. Mitchell called her for a private talk in his office. Her heart raced, mixing fear with hope. Upon entering, he greeted her with a serious face, but without his usual rigidity. "Laura, I've been watching your progress," he began. "I know you've been through difficult times, and I want you to know your effort hasn't gone unnoticed." She felt a lump in her throat, a mixture of relief and pride. "I know there's still much to improve, but I believe you have the potential to grow here." Those simple words carried immense weight for Laura. It was the recognition she longed for, coming from the last person she expected. Leaving the room, she realized that while the fight wasn't over, that conversation had ignited a new flame in her chest, the certainty that she could indeed turn things around. After the talk with Mr. Mitchell, something shifted inside Laura. Not that the challenges vanished, but the feeling of being seen and acknowledged gave her new energy, a renewed strength to keep going. The next day, arriving at the office, she noticed a subtle respect in the eyes of some colleagues who had previously ignored her. Jessica smiled encouragingly and offered help with a new project Laura was starting to lead. It was the first real step toward taking on more responsibilities. Despite the emotional load, Laura felt she was reclaiming her space. She learned to better divide her tasks, ask for help when needed, and trust her own abilities. At home, caring for her mother remained challenging, but Laura found support in family and friends. Though the nights were often long and lonely, her determination was unshakable. Every small work achievement, every gesture of kindness, every personal victory reinforced her commitment to herself. She would no longer be defined by past humiliation, but by the strength she built every day. And so, with a lighter heart and focused mind, Laura prepared for the next chapter of her life, a turning point that would change everything. With time, Laura felt more confident to take on bigger responsibilities at work. The project she was leading demanded full dedication, and she immersed herself in every detail, reviewing reports, aligning with the team, and preparing presentations. Despite the accumulated fatigue, she felt growing satisfaction seeing her efforts bear fruit. Meetings, once moments of anxiety, began to become opportunities to showcase her abilities. At home, challenges remained. Her mother needed constant care, and Laura learned to handle unforeseen events, maintaining calm even in the hardest situations. The demanding routine required a strength she sometimes didn't know she had. In her few hours of rest, she sought connection with herself through writing, meditation, or heartfelt conversations with Emily, who always reminded her of her strength and the path she'd traveled. Yet, not everything was easy. Doubts returned with force sometimes, and Laura wondered if she could really overcome everything. But it was precisely in those moments that she found within herself a steady voice saying, "Keep going. You are capable." One day during a meeting, an unexpected situation tested her resolve. An urgent problem arose, and Laura was called to help solve it. Calm and clear-headed, she led the team to a quick and efficient solution, earning discreet but sincere praise. That episode, though simple to outside observers, was a great personal victory for Laura. It proved that even amidst difficulties, she could maintain control and confidence. In the following weeks, Laura realized that every small step was building a solid foundation for her recovery, not only professionally but personally. She had learned to better balance priorities, respect herself, and value every achievement, no matter how small. At the office, relationships gradually improved. Smiles became more frequent, greetings more spontaneous, and the environment, though still challenging, was no longer a place of constant tension for her. Jessica remained a valuable friend and ally, always ready to share a coffee, offer words of support, or simply listen when Laura needed to vent. At home, her mother's condition demanded constant care, but Laura now counted on help from other family members, allowing her to regain strength and also take care of her own well-being. One quiet evening, writing in her diary, Laura reflected on all she had been through, the humiliations, the hard nights, the moments of doubt, and felt a silent wave of pride. She knew the fight wasn't over, but she was better prepared to face it. The road ahead was still long, but Laura was no longer alone. She had discovered within herself a strength she never knew, a power capable of transforming pain into overcoming. Despite the small victories, Laura knew there was much left to conquer. Each day brought new challenges, both at work and at home. Her mother's health, a constant concern, required care that often left her exhausted and worried. But Laura refused to sink. She began creating strategies to maintain balance, dividing tasks, delegating responsibilities when possible, and seeking moments of rest to recharge. At the office, the confidence growing within her led Laura to accept a task she would have once avoided, leading a presentation for an important client. Anxiety was high, but she knew this was a crucial opportunity. In the days leading to the presentation, she prepared diligently, reviewing every detail, rehearsing speeches, and asking Jessica for feedback. Her friend's collaboration was key to building her confidence. When the day finally came, Laura entered the meeting room with a pounding heart but steady posture. Her presentation was clear, objective, and confident, and even facing tough questions, she answered calmly and knowledgeably. In the end, the praise came, discreet but sincere. The client seemed pleased, and Mr. Mitchell made a positive comment that, though brief, meant a lot to Laura. That achievement marked an important milestone, concrete proof that her silent struggle was beginning to pay off. After the successful presentation, Laura felt a wave of relief and pride, but knew it wasn't the end of the journey, just a stage. She continued facing daily challenges, both professionally and personally. At the office, Some whispers persisted, and critical looks didn't disappear completely. There was also constant pressure to maintain performance and prove that victory was no accident. But Laura learned not to be shaken by these external noises. Instead, she focused on growth, learning, and the commitment she had made to herself. Life at home remained demanding. Her mother's health was still delicate, and Laura had to reinvent herself to better manage time and emotions. Family support was essential, but the ultimate responsibility still rested on her shoulders. Amid it all, Laura began to recognize something transformative: her own strength. Not explosive or immediate, but a quiet and constant determination driving her forward even in the darkest moments. She knew there was much more to achieve, but for the first time, she felt in control of her own story. One hectic day, Laura received unexpected news. Her name had been nominated for an internal company award recognizing employee performance and dedication. The nomination came from several colleagues who, over time, had come to value her work and attitude. The news stirred a mix of emotions: surprise, pride, and a bit of disbelief. She knew the nomination was not only professional recognition, but proof that her fight was being seen and valued. On the day of the ceremony, Laura, dressed in her best outfit, chose a subtle lipstick and took a deep breath before leaving home. At that moment, she wasn't just representing herself, but the entire journey of overcoming that had brought her there. As she stepped onto the stage to receive the award, she felt attentive eyes and warm applause from the audience. Mr. Mitchell was among them, clapping with a genuine smile. In that instant, Laura understood that despite difficulties and humiliation, she had managed to transform pain into strength, fear into courage, and doubt into certainty. The award was more than a trophy. It was a symbol of a personal victory, proof that her journey of overcoming was only beginning. After the ceremony, Laura returned home with the carefully wrapped trophy, but it was the feeling she carried inside that truly lit up her path. It wasn't just external recognition, it was validation of her own struggle, confirmation that all suffering and effort had purpose. In the following days, something changed in the office dynamic. People's looks softened, interactions became friendlier, and even Mr. Mitchell started seeking more dialogue, acknowledging Laura's value not only for her work, but for the strength she showed. However, transformation wasn't without challenges. Pressure to maintain performance increased, and Laura felt the weight of not being able to fail anymore. The responsibility seemed heavier, but instead of retreating, she leaned on the determination she had built with so much effort. At home, caring for her mother remained a priority, and Laura learned to share tasks, ask for help, and accept that she didn't have to carry everything alone. These moments of vulnerability made her even more human and strong. One rainy afternoon, while writing in her diary, Laura reflected on what she had achieved so far. "I'm no longer that woman who shrank before humiliation. I'm someone who learned to stand up, fight, and believe in herself. The road is still long, but now I know I can face it." With renewed conviction, Laura prepared for the next steps of her journey, steps that would lead to bigger challenges and even greater achievement. The days that followed were about adapting to this new reality. Laura knew recognition brought not only joy, but also greater responsibility. The internal pressure to maintain standards was constant, and sometimes fear of not meeting expectations made her relive moments of insecurity. However, she learned to handle this with maturity. Instead of being overly hard on herself, she began celebrating every small victory, appreciating her progress day by day. At the office, relationships became more harmonious. Colleagues who once looked at her with suspicion now sought her out to exchange ideas, ask for advice, and collaborate. Jessica remained her greatest support, always there to share laughs, challenges, and future plans. At home, Laura found in family and friends a fundamental support network. She understood that overcoming wasn't a lonely battle, but a process involving those we love and who love us back. One serene night, sitting by the window, she reread her diary, following the pages that told her transformation story. A calm smile appeared on her lips. She was ready for whatever came next. The journey wasn't over, but Laura had already taken giant steps toward the life she wanted. Every challenge faced, every tear shed, every word of encouragement received was part of building a strong, resilient, and determined woman. Over time, Laura felt transformed. The woman who had arrived at the office humiliated, full of doubts and fear, now carried in her eyes the certainty of someone who faced her darkest days and chose to move forward. Recognition, though timid at first, grew each day, reflecting not only her performance, but the inner strength she built with effort and courage. At home, her mother's presence was a constant reminder of what truly mattered, and the care dedicated to her was an expression of love and resilience. Laura knew the road ahead was still long and full of challenges, but now she walked with her head held high, confident in her ability to overcome whatever came. At that moment, sitting in her favorite corner of the house, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the peace that came from honest effort and renewed hope. The silent struggle had been tough, but it was only the beginning of a new phase. A phase of achievements, recognition, and above all, pride in who she was becoming. After so much effort and overcoming challenges, Laura was finally beginning to reap the rewards of her fight. The atmosphere at the office had changed, not just because of the internal award, but because of how she was now seen, a competent, resilient, and inspiring professional. Mr. Mitchell, who had once been so strict, became more collaborative, even acting as a mentor, offering guidance and sincerely recognizing her potential. Colleagues who had kept their distance before now sought her company, valuing her opinions and friendship. At home, Laura's mother showed significant improvement, and the family came together to celebrate small victories, strengthening the bonds that kept Laura strong and focused. But with recognition came new challenges, greater responsibilities, more complex projects, and the constant need to prove herself in a competitive environment. Despite this, Laura faced everything with the confidence she had built, ready to turn every obstacle into another step toward success. On that clear morning, Laura walked into the office with the confident posture that now accompanied her. The environment, once heavy with tension, felt warmer, a result not only of her own change, but of the impact her transformation had on the team. As she passed through the hallway, several colleagues greeted her with smiles and kind words. Jessica was there, waiting with a cup of fresh coffee, a small gesture symbolizing the friendship forged through difficulties. Mr. Mitchell in his office gave a discreet nod, showing a respect that once seemed impossible to attain. Laura responded with a genuine smile, sensing that their professional relationship was becoming more genuine and collaborative. The day brought new meetings, important projects, and decisions that demanded her attention and skill. Laura stood out in every moment, proving that her competence went beyond technical skills. She knew how to lead, motivate, and inspire. During a presentation to the board, her clear and confident speech pleasantly surprised everyone, including those who had once doubted her. The feeling of recognition filled the room, strengthening her confidence. At the end of the day, Laura sat at her desk, took a deep breath, and smiled. She knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where her true worth would finally be recognized and where she could finally write her own story. In the days that followed, Laura was assigned to lead a strategic project, a concrete proof of the trust the board was beginning to place in her. The challenge was great, but she was ready. With a renewed and motivated team, Laura led productive meetings, set clear goals, and delegated tasks effectively. Her leadership style was marked by empathy, open communication, and focus on results. However, not everything was smooth sailing. The pressure for quick results created tense moments, especially when unexpected problems arose. On one such occasion, an unexpected system failure threatened to delay the schedule, and Laura had to act swiftly to coordinate a solution. Her ability to stay calm under pressure and find effective alternatives earned her even greater respect from the team and upper management. Meanwhile, Laura's personal life remained delicately balanced. Her mother's improvement brought joy, but also constant reminders of the battles fought. She learned to cherish the small moments: a family lunch, a heartfelt conversation with a friend, a pause for herself. This new phase showed that recognition came with greater responsibilities, but also with a personal fulfillment that filled the voids of the past. At the office, Laura became increasingly a reference point. Colleagues sought her advice, and the team responded enthusiastically to her leadership. She knew that despite her achievements, she needed to stay focused and disciplined to avoid letting success distract her. One morning, during an important meeting, Laura presented an innovative plan that not only optimized processes, but also promoted a more collaborative work environment. The board approved the proposal enthusiastically, and she felt that her ideas were finally being valued. Still, the pressure to maintain that level of excellence was constant. At times, Laura felt anxiety tighten her chest and doubt whisper in her mind. But she was no longer the insecure woman she once was. Now she had internal tools to handle those moments. At home, the routine still demanded care and love. Her mother, though improved, still needed attention, and Laura made a point of being present. These responsibilities reinforced her sense of purpose and the strength to keep going. Between talks with Emily and moments of personal reflection, Laura realized that true transformation lay in the union of all her facets: the professional, the daughter, the friend, the woman learning to love herself. Every step was a victory, every challenge an opportunity to grow. Despite growing success, Laura felt the weight of responsibility as a silent burden that sometimes pressed too heavily on her chest. Amid meetings, deadlines, and decisions, moments arose when insecurity and fear of failure appeared unexpectedly, threatening to undermine her confidence. One particularly tough night, after an exhausting day at work and worries about her mother's health, Laura sat on her home porch watching the stars. The silence around seemed to amplify her thoughts and doubts. She knew she couldn't afford weaknesses, but also recognized she wasn't invincible. That honesty with herself was an important step on her journey, accepting that vulnerability was part of strength. The next day, during a tense meeting, a critical comment from a colleague brought that insecurity to the surface. For a moment, Laura felt the pressure rise, but she took a deep breath and used that emotion as fuel to respond with clarity and calm. It was a defining moment. Proof she was learning to face her fears, turning them into motivation. At home, a sincere conversation with Emily, who listened without judgment, was a balm for her soul. Knowing she didn't have to carry everything alone made all the difference. Each day, Laura built not only a solid career, but also an inner fortress that made her capable of facing any storm. In the following days, Laura dedicated herself to strengthening her emotional balance even more. She discovered that caring for her mind was as important as her efforts at work and caring for her mother. She began practicing breathing exercises, meditation, and set aside moments for herself, even if brief. At the office, her calm and centered demeanor became an example for the team. During an unexpected crisis caused by a technical system problem, Laura maintained tranquility, coordinating quick and effective solutions. This ability to lead under pressure elevated her prestige among colleagues and superiors. But it wasn't only external challenges that shaped Laura. Internally, she underwent a true transformation. In her daily reflections, she realized that self-compassion was a powerful ally against the excessive demands that once paralyzed her. In a deep conversation with Emily, she confided her deepest fears and insecurities. It was at that moment she understood vulnerability wasn't a sign of weakness, but the root of her strength. This awareness freed her to be more authentic, more present, and above all, happier. Walking through the park on a sunny morning, Laura smiled at herself, feeling that she was finally in control of her own story, a story of overcoming courage and resilience. Over time, Laura realized that the true victory wasn't just external recognition, but the transformation happening inside her. She was no longer the woman who doubted herself, but someone who embraced her imperfections and turned her fears into fuel to grow. At the office, her projects gained more visibility, and her leadership was recognized enthusiastically. The respect she earned was not only the result of hard work, but of the authenticity with which she presented herself to the world. At home, moments with her mother became even more precious. The fight for her health reinforced the importance of love, patience, and presence in the little things. Laura knew the journey would continue. New challenges and opportunities lay ahead. But now she walked with solid confidence, supported by an unshakable inner foundation. At the close of another day, sitting in her favorite corner, Laura smiled at herself in the mirror. That reflection was of a woman who had won silent battles and was ready to conquer whatever she wanted. And above all, she had learned that the greatest recognition was self-love, the fuel that would propel her toward any future. Despite visible success, Laura knew maintaining consistency was one of the biggest challenges. The pressure to surpass herself every day was intense, and moments of doubt still appeared, though more rarely and less paralyzing. She learned to seek balance, alternating between full focus at work and moments dedicated to self-care. She realized that to be an effective leader, she needed to be well with herself. During a business trip, Laura had the opportunity to present an innovative project to an international audience. The experience was challenging, requiring even clearer and more confident communication. With her team's support and careful preparation, she earned praise that opened doors to new opportunities within the company. This global recognition breathed new life into her career, but also raised expectations. Laura knew every achievement was an invitation to grow even more. At home, her mother's continuous improvement was a source of relief and gratitude, but also a reminder to cherish every moment. In her free time, Laura invested in personal development, courses, reading, and meetings with mentors who helped her expand her vision and skills. With each step, she moved closer to a dream that once seemed so distant, building a solid career without sacrificing balance and happiness. The following months were marked by a series of achievements that solidified Laura's place in the company and in her own life. Her projects gained prominence, and she became seen as a leader not only competent, but inspiring. During a board meeting, her name was mentioned for a promotion, confirmation of how much she had grown and the positive impact she caused in the environment. But Laura knew success wasn't just about titles or awards, but about the journey that brought her there. With every challenge overcome, she strengthened her confidence and expanded her ability to lead with empathy and authenticity. At home, her mother's health remained stable, and family moments of peace were celebrated as true treasures. Laura made time to care for herself, investing in activities that made her happy and connected her with her values. Looking back, she saw a path of overcoming that, although difficult, was essential for her to become the woman she always dreamed of being. The silent struggle had given way to a visible victory, not just for others, but mainly for herself. And with a heart full of hope, Laura was ready to write the next chapters of her story, knowing that regardless of the obstacles, her inner strength would be her greatest guide. Although recognition had already begun to reflect in promotions and praise, Laura felt her true transformation went beyond professional success. She was building a new relationship with herself, learning to value herself and handle imperfections without fear. On a typical day, after a productive meeting, she took a few minutes to reflect on her achievements and the challenges she still needed to face. It was a ritual that helped her stay grounded and focused on what truly mattered. The confidence she gained also showed in her posture and communication. Laura learned to assert herself clearly, unafraid to express her opinions and needs, whether at work or in her personal life. However, the journey was not linear. In moments of fatigue and pressure, she still felt the shadow of insecurity try to creep in. But now, armed with emotional tools and support from loved ones, Laura was able to face those shadows and move forward. One such situation happened when an important project faced unexpected obstacles. Laura felt the weight of responsibility, but didn't back down. With open dialogue and firm leadership, she guided the team to find solutions, reinforcing the trust placed in her. With every challenge overcome, Laura strengthened her conviction that the greatest victory was conquering herself. In the following days, Laura came to be seen as a pillar within the team. Her ability to stay calm in the face of adversity and inspire confidence became a differential admired by her colleagues. She knew that to be a complete leader, she also needed to be attentive to the team's needs, offering support and a listening ear. On a rainy morning during a strategic meeting, Laura proposed an initiative aimed not only at optimizing processes, but also promoting employee well-being, something she had come to value after her own journey of overcoming. The idea was well received, and a pilot project was approved for implementation. The team's enthusiasm grew, and Laura felt she was contributing to a more humane and productive environment. Despite progress, balance remained a daily challenge. At home, caring for her mother demanded constant adaptation, and Laura worked hard to juggle these demands with her job. She knew she couldn't give up her health and well-being, so she sought moments to relax, meditate, and reconnect with herself. On a quiet afternoon while walking through the park, Laura reflected on her journey. Every obstacle, every fall, every doubt had been fundamental to building the woman she was now, strong, resilient, and full of hope. She knew the road was still long, but she was ready to continue, certain that true victory was the ability to reinvent and grow every day. As the chapter came to an end, Laura felt she had finally found her place in the world, a place built with sweat, tears, courage, and determination. At the office, she was respected not just for her position or performance, but for the integral and authentic person she had become. Her leadership inspired others to face their own battles with more faith and hope. At home, her love for her mother was a constant source of strength, and the moments they shared were true treasures that nourished her soul. Laura knew her journey wasn't over. New challenges would arise, but she was ready to face them, for now she carried a powerful weapon, self-love and the certainty of her ability. As she prepared to sleep that night, she smiled at her reflection in the mirror, recognizing the strong and incredible woman she had become. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and hope, Laura said goodbye to that phase of silent struggle, ready to live the next chapters of achievements, realized dreams, and well-deserved happiness. With renewed confidence and solid recognition, Laura felt ready to expand her horizons. The company, aware of her potential, offered her the opportunity to lead an international project that would require travel, negotiations, and an even more strategic vision. Though the challenge was great, Laura saw it as a chance to grow even further and prove what she was truly capable of. She knew this new chapter would bring not only success, but also test her resilience and adaptability. On a personal level, Laura continued to care for her mother with love and dedication, but she also learned to carve out moments for herself, cultivating hobbies and relationships that enriched her life. The blend of professional achievements and personal balance began to shape an even fuller, more accomplished version of Laura. When she received the offer to lead the international project, Laura felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. It was an opportunity that meant not only professional growth, but also an invitation to step out of her comfort zone and face the unknown. She spent days planning, researching, and preparing for the upcoming travels, studying the market, the cultures of the involved countries, and the project's specifics. Her determination was evident to everyone around her, and the team felt inspired by the contagious energy she radiated. At home, preparations were underway as well. Laura talked with her family, aligning expectations and ensuring her mother's care was well organized during her absences. These moments reflected just how wisely she had learned to balance personal and professional life. The first day of travel arrived, and Laura boarded the plane with an open mind and a heart ready to embrace the new. Every meeting, every negotiation, every challenge was an opportunity to grow and reaffirm her capabilities. Despite the inherent difficulties of a project of this scale, Laura faced everything with optimism and resilience. She knew the road ahead would be long, but she was ready to walk it with determination and passion. The following weeks were intense. Laura split her time between online meetings, travel, and on-site work in different cities. Each new destination brought not only technical challenges, but also the need to adapt culturally and build trusting relationships with diverse teams. On one of these trips, arriving in a foreign city, Laura felt the weight of being far from home, but also the thrill of walking a path that once seemed unreachable. Amid meetings and presentations, she found small moments to explore the place, connect with the local culture, and recharge her spirit. At work, the complexity of the project demanded crisis management skills, negotiation finesse, and inspiring leadership. There were tense moments when tight deadlines and high expectations threatened to unsettle the group, but Laura led with firmness and empathy, keeping focus and motivation alive. Beyond professional demands, Laura battled homesickness and the constant worry for her mother's health. To ease the distance, she maintained daily contact, striving to be present despite the miles. This delicate balance was a challenge, but also a profound lesson about priorities, love, and resilience. As months passed, Laura became a cornerstone of the international project. Her ability to unite the team around a common goal and resolve conflicts was crucial to progress. In a decisive meeting, she faced a stalemate with foreign partners that threatened to delay the entire schedule. With patience and persuasion, Laura mediated the differences, finding a solution that satisfied everyone and reinforced her reputation as an effective negotiator. This victory did not go unnoticed by the company's leadership, who began considering future promotions and even greater challenges for her. Despite her achievements, Laura never forgot her roots. Daily calls with her mother were sacred moments, filled with laughter, worries, and love, strengthening their bond. In one of those moments, her mother said with a trembling but proud voice, "Daughter, you're showing me that nothing is impossible when you truly believe and fight for it." Words that echoed in Laura's heart, renewing her determination and giving her strength to carry on. As the project progressed, Laura realized her journey was about more than work. She was building a legacy, not just for herself, but for everyone around her. At the office, younger colleagues sought her advice and inspiration, seeing in her a shining example of overcoming adversity and female leadership. Laura embraced this responsibility warmly, offering support and motivation, always reminding herself of the importance of every small victory. At the same time, moments of rest became essential to maintaining balance. Laura started setting aside time for gatherings with friends, yoga sessions, and even small cultural outings during her travels. These breaks nourished her body and soul, allowing her to return to work refreshed. At home, her mother's gradual improvement was a constant joy, and Laura felt grateful for every shared moment. She knew this phase was a blessing, one born from all the strength and care she had given. Deep down, Laura understood that true victory was not only in promotions or completed projects, but in the ability to reinvent herself, embrace her own limits, and keep moving forward with courage. As the chapter drew to a close, Laura felt more complete and fulfilled than ever. The combination of professional success and personal balance made her a confident, resilient woman ready to face whatever came next. The company recognized her talent and dedication, and new opportunities appeared on the horizon, inviting her to continue growing and expanding her impact. At home, the love and presence of family gave meaning to everything, reminding her that true success is built with heart and humanity. Laura knew her journey still had many chapters ahead, challenges, victories, lessons, and transformations. But now, she walked with the certainty that no matter what happened, her inner strength would always be the guide leading her forward. And so, with hope and determination, Laura prepared to write the next chapters of her story, ready to embrace the future with courage and passion. With the experience gained and confidence earned, Laura now stood as a natural leader, inspiring not only her direct team, but the entire organization. Her leadership style, rooted in empathy, clear communication, and focus on developing people, transformed the workplace. New projects emerged, increasingly complex and strategic, and Laura faced them with the determination and wisdom she had acquired throughout her journey. She knew leadership was not just about managing tasks, but about guiding people, recognizing talent, and building a legacy. Beyond work, Laura devoted herself to social causes, seeking ways to help other women who, like her, faced challenges and needed support to thrive. Her personal life remained balanced, and the love for her family continued to be the foundation sustaining all her achievements. With her renewed confidence and established recognition, Laura felt ready to expand her horizons. The company, aware of her potential, offered her the opportunity to participate in an international project that would require travel, negotiations, and an even more strategic vision. Though the proposal was challenging, Laura saw in it a chance to grow even further and prove what she was truly capable of. She knew this new chapter would bring not only success, but also tests of her resilience and adaptability. On the personal front, Laura continued to care for her mother with love and dedication, but she also learned to set aside moments for herself, nurturing hobbies and relationships that enriched her life. The combination of professional achievements and personal balance began to shape an even fuller and more accomplished version of Laura. Upon receiving the offer to lead the international project, Laura felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. It was an opportunity that represented not only professional growth, but also an invitation to step out of her comfort zone and face the unknown. She spent days planning, researching, and preparing for the upcoming trips, studying the market, the cultures of the countries involved, and the project's particularities. Her determination was visible to everyone around her, and the team felt inspired by the contagious energy she radiated. At home, preparations were also underway. Laura spoke with her family, aligning expectations and ensuring that her mother's care would be well managed during her absences. These moments reflected how much she had learned to balance personal and professional life with wisdom. The first day of travel arrived, and Laura boarded with an open mind and a heart willing to embrace the new. Every meeting, every negotiation, every challenge was an opportunity to grow and reaffirm her capabilities. Despite the inherent difficulties of a project of this magnitude, Laura faced everything with optimism and resilience. She knew the road ahead would be long, but was ready to walk it with determination and passion. The following weeks were intense. Laura divided her time between online meetings, travels, and on-site work in different cities. Each new destination brought not only technical challenges, but also the need for cultural adaptation and building trust with diverse teams. On one of these trips, arriving in a foreign city, Laura felt the weight of being far from home, but also the excitement of treading a path that once seemed unreachable. Amid meetings and presentations, she found small moments to explore the place, connecting with the local culture and renewing her energy. At work, the project's complexity demanded skills in crisis management, negotiation, and inspiring leadership. There were tense moments when tight deadlines and high expectations threatened to destabilize the group. But Laura managed to lead the team with firmness and empathy, keeping focus and motivation alive. Beyond professional demands, Laura faced the longing for her family and the constant concern over her mother's health. To ease the distance, she maintained daily contact, striving to be present even from afar. This delicate balance was challenging, but also a profound lesson about priorities, love, and resilience. As months passed, Laura became a key player in the international project. Her ability to unite the team around a common goal and her skill in resolving conflicts were crucial for progress. In a decisive meeting, she confronted a deadlock with foreign partners that threatened to delay the entire schedule. With patience and persuasion, Laura mediated differences, finding a solution that pleased everyone and reinforced her reputation as an effective negotiator. This victory did not go unnoticed by the company's board, which began considering future promotions and even bigger challenges for her. Despite her achievements, Laura never forgot her roots. Daily calls with her mother were sacred moments where laughter, worries, and love were shared, strengthening their bond even more. In one of these moments, her mother said with a trembling but proud voice, "Daughter, you're showing me that nothing is impossible when you truly believe and fight." Words that echoed in Laura's heart, renewing her determination and giving her strength to continue. As the project advanced, Laura realized her journey went beyond work. She was building a legacy, not just for herself, but for everyone around her. At the office, younger colleagues sought her out for advice and inspiration, seeing in her a symbol of overcoming obstacles and female leadership. Laura embraced this responsibility warmly, offering support and motivation, always reminding everyone of the importance of every small victory. At the same time, moments of rest became essential to maintain balance. Laura began setting aside time for gatherings with friends, yoga sessions, and even small cultural outings during her trips. These breaks nourished her body and soul, allowing her to return to work refreshed. At home, her mother's gradual improvement was a constant joy, and Laura felt grateful for every shared moment. She knew this phase was a blessing, a result of all the strength and care dedicated. Deep down, Laura understood that true victory was not only about promotions or completed projects, but about the ability to reinvent herself, embrace her own limits, and move forward with courage. As the chapter drew to a close, Laura felt more complete and fulfilled than ever. The combination of professional achievements and personal balance made her a confident, resilient woman, prepared to face whatever came her way. The company recognized her talent and dedication, and new opportunities appeared on the horizon, inviting her to keep growing and expanding her impact. At home, the love and presence of family gave meaning to everything, reminding her that true success is built with heart and humanity. Laura knew the journey still had many chapters ahead, challenges, victories, lessons, and transformations. But now, she walked with the certainty that regardless of what happened, her inner strength would always be the guide leading her forward. And so, with hope and determination, Laura prepared to write the next chapters of her story, ready to embrace the future with courage and passion. With the experience accumulated and confidence earned, Laura now positioned herself as a natural leader, inspiring not only her immediate team, but the entire organization. Her leadership style, based on empathy, clear communication, and focus on people's development, transformed the work environment. New projects arose, increasingly complex and strategic, and Laura faced them with the determination and wisdom she had gained throughout her journey. She knew that leading was not just managing tasks, but guiding people, recognizing talents, and building a legacy. Beyond work, Laura dedicated herself to social causes, seeking ways to support the growth of other women who, like her, faced challenges and needed encouragement to stand out. Her personal life remained balanced, and the love for her family continued to be the foundation supporting all her achievements. With the experience she had accumulated and the confidence she had earned, Laura now stood out as a natural leader, inspiring not only her direct team, but the entire organization. Her leadership style, rooted in empathy, clear communication, and a focus on developing people, was transforming the workplace environment. New projects emerged, increasingly complex and strategic, and Laura faced them with the determination and wisdom she had gained throughout her journey. She understood that leading wasn't just about managing tasks, but about guiding people, recognizing talent, and building a legacy. Beyond work, Laura dedicated herself to social causes, seeking ways to support the growth of other women who, like her, faced challenges and needed encouragement to shine. Her personal life remained balanced, with love for her family serving as the foundation that sustained all her achievements. Laura knew her path could inspire many women still battling struggles similar to those she had overcome. That's why she began participating in events and giving talks, sharing her story of resilience and offering practical advice to those seeking personal and professional growth. At the office, her team thrived under her leadership. She invested time to truly know each member, understand their motivations, and help them overcome obstacles. The respect and admiration she received were a reflection of her genuine dedication. Moreover, Laura launched a mentorship program for young professionals, especially encouraging women to develop their skills and claim their rightful places in the spotlight. Her influence extended beyond the corporate world. She became actively involved in organizations promoting gender equality and female empowerment, using her voice to advocate for causes she deeply believed in. Despite a packed schedule, Laura found balance by reserving time for family, friends, and self-care, practices she deemed essential for maintaining her physical and emotional health. As the mentorship program gained momentum, Laura witnessed the transformative power her experience had on the young women she guided. Every story of overcoming hardship, every sincere piece of advice, sparked a cycle of inspiration and collective growth. However, leadership also brought its challenges. On some occasions, Laura faced internal resistance, whether from those reluctant to change or colleagues who subtly questioned her authority due to hidden biases. These moments demanded not only technical skill, but also immense patience, emotional intelligence, and steadfastness to maintain her position without sacrificing respect and empathy. In one particularly tense meeting, Laura had to confront a superior's sexist attitude, wielding clear arguments and unwavering composure. Though difficult, her courage only strengthened her reputation as a leader. This blend of empathy and firmness was what made Laura so admired and respected, a leader who inspired trust and fostered real change. Meanwhile, Laura continued her personal routine, cherishing simple moments, a family dinner, a walk in the park, a heartfelt conversation with Emily. These were the pillars that sustained her strength. Over time, Laura established herself as an exemplary leader, not only through the results she delivered, but through how she cared for those around her. Her legacy extended far beyond the office, a story of courage, empathy, and transformation that inspired all who had the privilege to know her. The company recognized her value, and Laura knew new doors would open for her. But more important than that, she felt fulfilled, knowing she could help others grow and overcome their own battles. At home, the love of her family remained her anchor, and the moments they shared became precious memories that nourished her soul. Laura looked to the future with hope and determination, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing her inner strength would always be the guiding light. And so, another chapter of her life came to a close, a chapter of leadership, legacy, and above all, self-love. After consolidating her leadership and leaving an inspiring legacy, Laura realized that life was a constant dance between professional and personal challenges. In this new phase, she sought true balance, one that allows growth without giving up what truly matters. New responsibilities arose, along with opportunities to reinvent herself and explore other passions and dreams that had, until then, been in the background. Laura began investing more in her personal development, dedicating time to care for her mind, body, and spirit. She learned that true resilience is born from inner balance. At the same time, her personal relationships deepened, and she valued every connection that strengthened her journey. With an increasingly intense routine, Laura realized that to continue growing, she needed to care for herself more deeply. She sought practices that nurtured not only her body, but also her mind and spirit. From meditation and physical exercises to readings that inspired her to look at life with more lightness. At work, she continued facing challenges, but now with a different perspective. She knew professional success was important, but needed to be aligned with her well-being and happiness. Her relationship with her family also gained new contours. With her mother's health improving, their moments together became lighter and more joyful, bringing emotional balance to Laura. Additionally, new friendships and connections emerged, enriching her support network and bringing new perspectives to her journey. This phase showed that true growth is not only about external achievements, but about learning to take care of oneself and cultivate inner peace. In the following months, Laura incorporated habits into her routine that transformed her relationship with herself. She began reserving mornings for outdoor walks, practicing yoga, and writing in her journal, activities that helped clear her mind and find serenity even on the busiest days. At work, her approach changed, subtly but powerfully. Laura started delegating more, trusting her team's capabilities and focusing on strategies that allowed sustainable results instead of constant pressure for immediate productivity. This change brought visible benefits, less stress for herself and the group, as well as a more collaborative and creative environment. In her personal life, Laura cultivated deeper and more genuine relationships. She reconnected with old friends, strengthened bonds with Emily, and dedicated time to building new relationships, valuing authenticity and mutual support. During one of these meetings, over coffee, Laura shared her dreams and desires for the future, realizing that her journey was far from over. She was just beginning to discover new facets of herself. Not everything was simple in this new moment. Despite the effort to maintain balance, Laura faced common dilemmas for those who tried to juggle multiple responsibilities. There were days when guilt over the time she couldn't dedicate to her mother weighed on her heart, or when fatigue threatened her motivation. On a rainy night, after an exhausting day, Laura sat alone on the porch, watching the raindrops slide down the glass. The feeling of overload seemed to want to dominate her, but she took a deep breath and remembered the paths she had already traveled. She decided in that moment that it was time to allow herself to ask for help and share her burdens. She shared her difficulties with Emily, who offered not only words of comfort but also practical suggestions to ease her routine. This openness was a turning point. Laura understood that strength also lies in vulnerability and in the ability to build a true support network. At work, she sought to implement changes that relieved pressure on her team, promoting a healthier and more sustainable environment. Despite initial resistance from some, the culture began to change, showing that leadership based on care brings lasting results. That rainy night, while the storm battered the windows of the house, Laura felt the accumulated weight of the past weeks manifest as an almost physical exhaustion. The fast-paced rhythm between work trips, office responsibilities, and caring for her mother was beginning to take its toll. Sitting on the porch, with the city view blurred by rain, she allowed herself to feel what she'd been trying to hide for a long time: the fear of not being enough, the silent anxiety that accompanied her in moments of solitude. But it was precisely in this moment of vulnerability that Laura found renewed strength. She recalled Emily's words, her faithful friend, who always reminded her of the importance of asking for help and trusting the people who loved her. The next day, Laura decided to open her heart to the team. In a candid meeting, she shared her difficulties and emphasized the importance of working together to create a more collaborative and less overwhelming environment. This attitude surprised many colleagues who began to see Laura not only as a strong leader, but as a real person, capable of facing her weaknesses and turning them into learning experiences. By implementing new work practices, such as shorter meetings, clear division of tasks, and moments of pause, Laura noticed a gradual change in the team's atmosphere. Work became lighter, and results continued to grow. At home, she also began delegating some tasks and accepting help from family and professionals, understanding that taking care of herself was fundamental to being present for those she loved. Over time, this new posture brought balance and well-being, showing that true strength lies in self-knowledge and the courage to seek support. In the months that followed, Laura felt the fruits of her choices. The team worked more harmoniously, and the positive results reflected the new climate of collaboration and mutual respect. The previously tense and stressful environment gave way to a space where creativity and personal growth flourished. She herself felt lighter and more connected to herself, managing professional demands better without sacrificing the time needed for her health and happiness. Conversations with Emily continued to be an essential support. One afternoon, sitting in a cozy cafe, Laura shared her achievements and also her deepest fears, the fear of not being enough, losing control, failing. Emily listened attentively, reminding her that life's journey is made of ups and downs, and true courage lies in continuing even when everything seems difficult. This solid and sincere friendship was a safe harbor, a constant reminder that Laura was not alone. Additionally, Laura invested in her personal development, attending workshops on emotional intelligence, empathetic leadership, and self-compassion, tools that further strengthened her ability to face challenges. Looking back, she saw how much she had grown, not only as a professional, but as a human being. Over time, Laura consolidated not only her career, but also a healthy relationship with herself and others. The balance she sought had become part of her routine, driving her to be a more human and present leader. Challenges would continue to arise, she knew that very well, but now she had internal tools to face them with serenity and confidence. At home, her relationship with her mother was lighter and more loving, and Laura felt grateful for every shared moment, valuing the small joys of everyday life. Her friendship with Emily remained strong, offering support and inspiration for the next steps. More than ever, Laura understood that her journey was ongoing, a path of learning, overcoming, and, above all, self-love. As she closed the chapter of this phase, she felt ready to embrace the future with courage and hope, certain that the best chapters were yet to come. After achieving a meaningful balance between her personal and professional life, Laura felt it was time to reinvent herself, not just chasing success in the corporate world anymore, but also exploring other passions and dreams that had long been lying dormant. This moment of reinvention brought new challenges, the need to step out of her comfort zone and embrace the unknown, but also the excitement of discovering talents and interests that could transform her life in unexpected ways. Laura began dedicating herself to side projects, investing in personal development courses, entrepreneurship, and creativity. Little by little, she realized this expansion was essential for her full fulfillment. On a personal level, she strengthened her bonds even more, creating a solid and genuine support network that would accompany her in the steps ahead. Laura felt a new fire burning inside her, a flame that pushed her to seek more than traditional success. She wanted to give voice to her old dreams, those that had taken a back seat during years of struggle and perseverance. With courage, she started exploring areas that once seemed distant, like writing and coaching, driven by a desire to help others find their own strength. To do so, she enrolled in online courses, attended workshops, and sought mentors who could guide her on this new path. The process wasn't easy. Often Laura faced doubts, insecurities, and the fear of failing at something completely new. But this time, she met those feelings with kindness, allowing herself to make mistakes and learn. At home, her family and Emily became her foundation of support, celebrating every small victory and offering strength during tough times. This phase of reinvention marked the beginning of an exciting chapter, where Laura discovered that growth has no limits and true fulfillment comes from embracing one's own authenticity. Diving into this new world of possibilities, Laura realized that reinvention wasn't just about changing careers or acquiring new skills. It was, above all, a journey of personal rediscovery. Every course, every book, every conversation with her mentors helped her understand her passions, her values, and the direction she wanted to follow. At the same time, she had to face the old challenge of balance. Juggling this new phase with daily responsibilities, work, and caring for her mother demanded planning and discipline. There were moments when exhaustion threatened to take over, and doubts about being on the right path hit hard. But Laura learned to lean on the support network she had built, asking for help when needed and celebrating every step forward, no matter how small. Her personal growth also reflected in her relationships. Laura became more open, vulnerable, and connected with those around her, strengthening bonds and inspiring others with her authenticity. This phase showed that even after great achievements, life is always in motion, inviting us to grow, change, and reinvent ourselves. One sunny Saturday, Laura attended a creative writing workshop, an old dream she was finally determined to pursue. Amid words and exercises, she felt a freedom she hadn't experienced in years, as if giving voice to a part of herself that had been silenced for too long. After class, she sat in a nearby cafe and started drafting ideas for a blog where she would share stories of overcoming, leadership, and empowerment. It was a small project but full of meaning. In the following days, the initiative took shape. Laura spent part of her nights writing, sharing her experiences and lessons with a growing audience who identified with her journey and sought inspiration in her words. This new channel of expression also opened doors to connect with other women who, like her, were seeking to reinvent their lives and careers. Meanwhile, her professional routine remained intense, but Laura set clear boundaries so her personal projects wouldn't be neglected. This phase represented a rebirth. The woman who once endured humiliation and doubt was now stepping forward with confidence, authenticity, and a powerful voice. As Laura's blog gained followers, she started receiving messages from women everywhere, sharing their own stories of struggle and triumph. Every comment was a reminder of the power of connection and the importance of sharing real experiences. Encouraged by this feedback, Laura expanded her content, creating texts, videos, and even podcasts, always with the mission to inspire and empower other women. This new role not only broadened her impact, but also strengthened her own confidence and sense of purpose. At the same time, Laura realized her reinvention journey was becoming a life mission, helping others find their voice and inner strength. She began planning workshops and support groups, combining her professional experience with a genuine desire to make a difference. Amid this new routine, Laura took care to preserve the simple, important moments: family dinners, walks in the park, heartfelt talks with Emily, moments that kept her grounded and balanced. With the blog's growth and increasing engagement, Laura felt her voice was truly making a difference. Every message she received, every testimony of someone encouraged to keep going, brought a deep sense of fulfillment and purpose. She understood that the vulnerability she once feared showing was actually a powerful bridge connecting stories and hearts. Her authenticity had become a beacon for many women still at the beginning of their own journeys. Over time, the blog evolved into an online community where women shared experiences, questions, and victories. Laura gently and respectfully facilitated these interactions, creating a safe and welcoming space. Invitations for talks and events began to pour in, where Laura shared her story and knowledge, expanding her reach even further. This new mission gave meaning to her days and nourished her soul, renewing her strength to face daily challenges. Through it all, Laura remained steadfast in her professional commitments, balancing responsibilities and maintaining the discipline that had brought her this far. Weekends, once reserved solely for rest, became times for gatherings with her community, moments that fueled her passion and desire for social transformation. At home, her relationship with her mother grew stronger and more loving, reminding Laura that all her struggles and dedication had been worthwhile. This period of reinvention, despite its difficulties, was the happiest and most rewarding she had ever lived. Closing this chapter of her journey, Laura felt more whole and connected than ever before. Reinvention had not been just an external change, but a profound inner transformation that led her to discover new purposes and passions. Her voice, once shy and full of doubt, now echoed powerfully, reaching and inspiring countless women seeking courage to follow their own paths. The balance between professional life, personal life, and this new mission was delicate but achievable, the result of much discipline, self-love, and learning. Laura knew there would be many challenges ahead, but she now walked with confidence and authenticity, ready to embrace each one with an open heart. As she typed the last words on her blog that night, she smiled at the computer screen, aware that this story was only the beginning of a legacy that would continue to grow. And so, with hope and determination, Laura prepared for the chapters yet to come, knowing her true strength lay in being faithful to herself. After so many steps taken in her career, leadership, and personal reinvention, Laura knew life would always bring new challenges. This phase would be marked by both internal and external changes, pushing her to reflect even more deeply on her values, boundaries, and priorities. As her influence grew, Laura began facing complex dilemmas that tested her integrity and resilience. Tough decisions, both professionally and personally, would shape this new stage. But as always, Laura prepared herself to face these transformations with courage and wisdom, knowing each challenge was an opportunity to grow and become stronger. Laura felt she was entering a phase of life where choices went beyond just professional or personal goals. Now they involved questions of essence, ethics, and purpose. With her increasing visibility, external pressures emerged, pushing her to take positions that didn't always reflect her deepest values. It was a delicate moment, requiring balance between authenticity and the demands around her. Moreover, the need to preserve her mental and emotional health became even clearer. Laura invested in therapy, moments of introspection, and practices that helped her stay centered amid the storm. On a personal level, some relationships needed to be re-evaluated, some even left behind, so she could continue her path lighter and more true to herself. Though challenging, this phase also brought significant inner growth, an invitation to look at herself with more love and understanding. As her career continued to rise, Laura realized that the real challenge wasn't only about external goals, but the inner battles she had to fight. The pressure to maintain a perfect image, constant expectations from others, and doubts about her own decisions created an emotional whirlwind that silently consumed her. One difficult night, she stood before the mirror, looking into her own eyes and questioning who she truly wanted to be. That moment sparked a profound change, a journey to embrace her authenticity, even if it meant displeasing some people or facing resistance. Laura also had to face conflicts at work. Proposals that went against her ethical values put her in a dilemma, and she had to find ways to firmly express her position, knowing it might affect her career. Though painful, these experiences strengthened her conviction that true success is only worth it when aligned with personal integrity. In her personal life, some friendships faded and ended, while others proved true and lasting, showing that genuine relationships are among life's greatest treasures. Amid these internal conflicts, Laura found in writing and meditation a way to connect with herself and process emerging emotions. Every word she put on paper was a step toward understanding her own truths and strengthening her voice. During a work trip, she faced a decisive moment, a proposal that could boost her career but required compromising her values. After nights of reflection, Laura chose to decline the opportunity, knowing her integrity was worth more than any promotion. This decision wasn't easy and caused immediate repercussions, including questions and even criticism, but it also brought relief and reaffirmed who she was. Over time, Laura realized these moments of resistance were fundamental to her growth, and that staying true to herself was the greatest act of courage. In her personal life, she valued even more the relationships that strengthened her, cultivating bonds based on truth and mutual respect. These deep transformations paved the way for a new version of Laura, more conscious, resilient, and ready for the next chapters of her life. As months passed, Laura understood that true transformation came from within. She learned to deal with pressure, no longer trying to control everything, but accepting what she couldn't change and focusing on what was within her reach. This acceptance brought new lightness to her life, allowing her to face challenges with more serenity and clarity. At work, Laura became a reference not only for competence, but for integrity and authenticity. Colleagues and leaders admired her courage to defend her values, even when it meant swimming against the current. Her stance inspired others to act with ethics and transparency, contributing to a healthier organizational culture. In her personal life, Laura surrounded herself with people who respected and supported her journey, creating a circle of trust that strengthened her resilience. She also dedicated more time to mental and emotional self-care, adopting daily practices like meditation, exercise, and leisure moments. This phase, marked by deep transformations, was decisive in making Laura the full and confident woman she always sought to be. Laura's transformation didn't happen overnight. It was a slow and continuous journey, full of ups and downs, victories and lessons. Each challenge faced acted as a mirror, revealing something new about herself, sometimes comforting, other times unsettling. Throughout this process, Laura developed a self-care routine that became indispensable. In the mornings, she reserved a few minutes for meditation, allowing her mind to find calm before facing the day. She practiced regular physical exercise, which not only strengthened her body, but also helped relieve accumulated stress. Writing remained her ally, a safe space to express feelings, reflect on choices, and plan the future with clarity. Most importantly, Laura learned to set healthy boundaries, both at work and in her personal life. She learned to say no when something went against her values or harmed her well-being, even when it caused discomfort or disappointment. This attitude boosted her self-esteem and positioned her as a respected and admired leader who never compromised her integrity. Professionally, Laura invested in developing her team's emotional intelligence, promoting training and creating spaces for open, empathetic dialogue. Her example inspired colleagues to be more authentic and collaborative, transforming organizational culture from within. In her personal relationships, Laura chose more consciously who she related to, valuing those who truly added to her life and distancing herself from toxic influences. Her deep connection with Emily remained a vital support, a friendship based on trust, understanding, and mutual encouragement. This phase of profound transformation solidified a new Laura, strong, integrous, and serene, ready to face whatever the future held. Over time, Laura realized that true strength is not in never falling, but in always rising, wiser, more resilient, and more connected with her essence. The difficulties she faced along the way were her greatest teachers, and despite the pain, she embraced each one as part of her growth. At work, her legacy was clear, a more ethical, human, and collaborative culture, born from her unwavering commitment to her values. In her personal life, she enjoyed genuine, deep relationships built on respect and authenticity. Above all, Laura knew her journey was ongoing, a path of constant transformation where each new challenge was an opportunity to become the best version of herself. With a heart full of gratitude and an open mind for the future, Laura was ready for the next chapters of her life, aware that her greatest legacy would be the example of courage, integrity, and self-love. After all the transformation and self-discovery, Laura felt more prepared than ever to face the new challenges on her path. This stage would be marked by opportunities that demanded even more courage, creativity, and resilience from her. At the same time, significant achievements began to take shape, fruits of her hard work, dedication, and commitment to her values. Laura started to understand that every challenge carried a seed of growth, and true success was about learning from each experience. Amid it all, she kept investing in her personal relationships and the balance she had long sought, knowing this foundation was essential to keep moving forward. Laura felt a renewed energy as she prepared for this new chapter in life. The lessons learned in previous chapters were now her solid foundation, giving her the confidence to explore new possibilities. At work, projects demanding creativity and innovation came her way. Laura stood out by leading initiatives that not only delivered results, but also fostered team development and engagement. These projects opened doors to strategic partnerships and recognition both inside and outside the company, elevating her name and reputation. At the same time, personal challenges tested her in unexpected ways. It was necessary to balance new responsibilities with the need to maintain emotional well-being and the quality of the relationships she deeply valued. To achieve this, Laura remained steadfast in her self-care practices, setting boundaries and prioritizing what truly mattered. This phase invited growth in all dimensions of life, embracing the complexity and beauty of the process. Among the new ventures, Laura took the lead on an initiative aiming to innovate internal processes, making them more efficient and sustainable. This mission required not just technical knowledge, but also the ability to inspire and engage her team. She dedicated herself to creating a collaborative environment where ideas were valued and open dialogue encouraged. She knew that for lasting results, everyone needed to feel part of the transformation. The process was challenging. There was resistance, doubt, and moments of tension, but Laura led with empathy and firmness, always emphasizing the importance of the collective purpose. In the end, the results exceeded expectations. The company reduced costs, improved service quality, and employee satisfaction rose significantly. This success brought recognition not just to Laura, but to the whole team, reinforcing the importance of teamwork and values-based leadership. On the personal front, Laura continued investing in her passions and relationships, masterfully balancing the fast pace of daily life. She understood that every achievement, big or small, was part of a larger path, a path of growth, learning, and fulfillment. As the success of the internal initiative bore fruit, Laura began receiving invitations to speak at conferences and panels on female leadership and workplace innovation. These events expanded her network and opened doors to strategic partnerships that could further propel her career. During one of these conferences, Laura met Olivia, an entrepreneur and activist with whom she quickly formed a deep connection. Together, they began envisioning projects that combined technology and social impact, aiming to promote inclusion and diversity in corporate environments. This new partnership brought fresh energy to Laura, awakening her creativity and desire to do even more for the community around her. Yet, she knew she had to be careful not to overburden herself. The balance she had achieved so far was her greatest asset, and she made sure to protect it by reserving time for rest and leisure and valuing the relationships that sustained her. At home, her relationship with family remained a constant source of strength and inspiration, and Laura cherished every moment with her loved ones. As the year went on, Laura felt more confident and fulfilled. Her professional achievements were the result of continuous effort, authentic leadership, and commitment to her values. Her partnership with Olivia opened new possibilities for impact, expanding the reach of her projects beyond the corporate world. On the personal side, Laura continued to invest in balance and the relationships that provided support and joy. She knew the road ahead would still have obstacles, but she was ready to face them with the same courage and resilience that had carried her this far. With a heart full of gratitude and an open mind for the future, Laura prepared to embrace the next chapters of her life, chapters that promised to be even more challenging and rewarding. One morning, Laura woke with a different feeling, a mix of peace and restlessness, signaling that something important was about to happen. She knew this stage of her life was reaching a critical point, a moment to consolidate all she had learned, overcome the last obstacles, and embrace her true legacy. From the first time she stepped into that office years ago, she felt the weight of expectations, silent humiliations, and doubt about her own worth. But she had also grown in strength, wisdom, and self-confidence, and now it was time to show herself and the world how much that journey had transformed her. As she drank her coffee, Laura mentally reviewed the chapters of her life, like flipping through a photo album. She remembered sleepless nights, moments of discouragement, and the small victories that once seemed insignificant but laid the foundation for the woman she had become. At work, challenges still existed, but Laura faced them differently, with a blend of calm and determination. Her leadership inspired respect, not through authority, but by example. That day, a special meeting was scheduled, the presentation of a project that could transform not only her career, but also the company's culture and many lives. Laura felt the weight of responsibility, but also the certainty that she was ready for that moment. Entering the meeting room, Laura felt a mix of nervousness and focus. It was the culmination of years of work, overcoming, and learning. The attentive eyes of colleagues and leaders were fixed on her, awaiting the presentation that could change many paths. With a firm and confident voice, she began to present the innovative project, which sought not only to increase the company's efficiency and profitability, but also to value employee well-being, diversity, and sustainability. Every slide, argument, and example was carefully prepared to show that results and humanity could go hand in hand, a vision Laura passionately defended. As she spoke, the energy in the room shifted. Questions and comments arose, not of resistance, but of interest and enthusiasm. At the end of the presentation, the applause was sincere and warm. But that victory went far beyond professional success. It was confirmation that the courage to stay true to one's values can transform realities. After the meeting, Laura received messages from colleagues who had once doubted her, but now recognized her leadership and vision. She felt gratified, not out of pride, but because she knew her fight had been worth it. In that moment, a deep reflection took hold of her mind. The true legacy she wanted to leave was not made of titles or achievements, but of examples and positive impact on people's lives. In the days following the presentation, Laura felt a wave of positive change. The project was approved and began to be implemented with the whole team's involvement. The company adopted practices prioritizing the balance between productivity and quality of life, inspiring other organizations to follow suit. Laura dedicated herself intensely to this mission, but never lost sight of self-care. She continued to set aside time for daily meditation, moments with her mother, and heartfelt conversations with Emily, who always reminded her of the importance of staying grounded. It was during this period that she received an unexpected invitation to be a speaker at an international congress on female leadership. The opportunity was a recognition of the impact she had been making and a chance to share her message with an even larger audience. While preparing her speech, Laura reflected on her entire journey, the pain, humiliation, victories, and lessons learned. She knew her story could inspire other women to find the courage to follow their own paths. On the day of the Congress, standing before an attentive audience, she shared her journey with authenticity and emotion. She spoke about the hardships she faced, the importance of resilience and integrity, and the strength that comes from being true to oneself. The recognition and affection she received were immense, but what touched her most was realizing how many women identified with her story and found there a push for their own transformations. Duman. After the Congress, Laura returned home with a heart full of gratitude and renewed energy. She knew that experience was not just a personal achievement, but a call to expand her impact even further. She decided to invest in social projects, encouraging female empowerment in underprivileged communities. Joining forces with Olivia and other partners, she created mentorship programs, training workshops, and safe spaces for women who, like her, sought to transform their lives. These projects brought their own challenges: limited resources, bureaucracy, cultural resistance. But Laura faced each obstacle with the same determination that had guided her from the start. Meanwhile, her personal life also experienced intense moments. Her mother's health, though stable, demanded constant care, prompting Laura to reevaluate her priorities and seek even more balance between her multiple roles. In a deep conversation with Emily, Laura acknowledged she didn't have to carry the world alone. Learning to delegate, ask for help, and accept support was a fundamental part of her growth journey. That humility and ability to constantly reinvent herself were, perhaps, her greatest strengths. Walking through the park on a late afternoon, Laura felt the lightness of someone no longer afraid of the future, knowing her path was made of firm steps, continuous learning, and a purpose that transcended any challenge. In the days following her decision to expand social impact, Laura dived headfirst into building projects that would transform lives. Every workshop organized, every conversation with the women in the community, every moment spent listening to their stories reinforced the importance of her work. She saw the sparkle in those women's eyes, the awakening of hope and self-confidence that only those who have faced similar battles can understand. This emotional return was the fuel driving her forward, even in the face of logistical and financial difficulties. At the same time, Laura had to learn to manage the complexity of her own life. Her mother's health required special attention, and there were moments when exhaustion threatened to take over. She had to reevaluate her routine, adjust schedules, and, above all, accept that she couldn't control everything alone. It was in this phase that Emily's friendship showed its deepest value. Emily was not just a listener, but an active partner, helping Laura organize demands and find moments of rest. This external support allowed Laura to maintain the balance necessary to keep going strong on the mission she had embraced. More than ever, she understood that true strength is not about carrying everything alone, but building a support network, trusting people, and cultivating relationships of trust. Closing her eyes that night, Laura felt grateful for the journey, for the challenges, for the achievements, and above all, for never giving up on herself. She knew the journey had no end, but every step taken so far had already created a legacy of courage and transformation that would never be erased. In the quiet moments of that night, Laura sat at her desk, lit only by the soft glow of a lamp. Beside her, an open notebook, a space to hold thoughts, reflections, and dreams, her anchor amid life's whirlwind. She let her mind travel through the entire path that had brought her to that point. It was hard to believe how much she had changed. She remembered those mornings waking with the weight of doubt, times she felt invisible and silenced, and humiliations that made her question her own worth. But above all, she remembered the strength she found inside herself, that spark of courage that refused to go out, even in the darkest moments. Over the years, she learned that true transformation doesn't come from external circumstances, but from how we choose to respond to them. She realized every challenge faced, tear shed, and fear overcome was a fundamental step toward becoming the woman she was now. That woman who, despite scars, carried a light that illuminated not only her own path, but also those lucky enough to cross her journey. She thought of the women she had met through her mentorship programs, those who arrived full of fear, insecurity, and doubt, but gradually found their own voice, strength, and dignity. She felt the real impact of what she had built, not in numbers or titles, but in lives touched, stories transformed, and empowerment blooming in every heart. Laura understood that her legacy would be this, a living example that it's possible to rise from the ashes, that overcoming is a continuous path, and that courage is the bridge that takes us to new horizons. The journey, she knew, would never have a definitive end. There would always be new chapters to write, new challenges to face, and new ways to grow. And she was ready. Not with the naivety of those early weeks, but with the wisdom earned in practice, with the serenity of someone who knows life is made of cycles, ups and downs, meetings and farewells. That very night, beside her mother and Emily, she felt the fullness that only comes when surrounded by love, support and truth. They talked about future dreams and plans, but also about the difficulties that might still come. It was a moment of deep connection, where each could be vulnerable and accepted exactly as they were. Laura smiled at those women she loved so much and thought about the importance of a support network, how no one walks alone, and how collective strength can transform not just individuals, but entire communities. Before going to bed, she wrote one last sentence in her journal. "May my life be a beacon for those who feel lost, a proof that the impossible can be conquered with courage, faith, and love. May I never forget that the true legacy is the journey, and the best is yet to come." As she closed her eyes, she felt a mix of peace and excitement. The story that had started with so much hardship, humiliation, and doubt was now a powerful testimony of overcoming and hope. Laura knew she was only beginning to write the next chapters of her life, and that every step, no matter how challenging, would bring her closer to the woman she always dreamed of being. A woman of integrity, authenticity, resilience, and above all, happiness with herself. Staying until the end, more stories are already on the way. See you in the next chapter.